And in this week's episode of Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast, we're talking the final weekend of the season as the playoffs are just about to start. The playoff races are in full force. We're also doing Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch C923, the latest batch from Heaven Hill. Is it the best one of the year? Is it the best one of the last several years? We'll break that down and have a look ahead at some playoff predictions. That's coming up in episode 44 of Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Stay tuned.
This is Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast, with your hosts, Brandon Spinner and Michael Burns.
And welcome into Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Michael's just joining us as I am Brandon. That is Michael. If this is your first time tuning in, we are a podcast that talks bourbon and baseball. We like to say high proof and high heat. Thanks for joining us. Happy Thursday. This is going to be dropping on a Friday, a little bit of a different schedule, partially because of work, partially because we're getting closer to the playoffs and baseball season is winding down, at least for every team. How do you feel about that?
There's the sadness that everything's coming to the close of MLB. But the playoff baseball has such an electric atmosphere of its own. Mm-hmm. Even if your team doesn't make it, you could still pick a team each series. I wouldn't recommend picking a team and hoping they make it all the way through, because then you'll be setting yourself up for disappointment. But yeah.
Just pick whatever team Michael's going against, because as we found out last year in predictions, whatever team Michael picked, it was like the death knell.
Yep, I picked the Marlins so far this year.
Oh, yeah. He's doing the reverse curse right there. So welcome to episode 44. I am Brandon. That is Michael. As I mentioned earlier, we are Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast talking high proof and high heat. This is episode 44, and let's start it off the same way we have for the last several weeks. Who is the best to ever wear the number 44? I think it should be pretty easy, but there are some decent names on this list. There's just one that really stands out the most, and you're seeing three of them on your screen. It's going to be hard to go against one of those guys.
Yeah, his WAR is pretty ridiculous.
Pretty ridiculous is like saying, like, even calmly, I think. What is it, like 122 or something like that?
143.
143. Jesus.
Yeah. And if you don't know who we're talking about Henry Aaron there on the
left. I thought you were going to say Anthony Rizzo.
I meant to.
Yes. 143. He worked for 22 seasons between the Milwaukee Braves, Atlanta Braves, and the Milwaukee Brewers for 2 years. Most people don't really know that he finished his career as a Brewer in those final 2 years. That is double or nearly double the next best WAR for someone who wore that number. And that was Reggie Jackson in 11 years with 73.9 WAR. And that's a career total for Reggie Jackson, who wore another couple of numbers back when he was, I believe, in Oakland the first time around, as well as in Baltimore. So Willie McCovey's the other picture that we popped up there. You may know him from the Giants. Willie McCovey, McCovey Cove, also a Hall of Famer, a longtime Giant, but also played with the Padres and the Athletics. 64.5 WAR, same amount of years. Still almost 100 less. That's how insane the home run king, or at least until Barry Bonds. But yeah, and some people will still say he is the home run king, depending on who you ask. But 143 WAR, 3,771 hits, 755 home runs. That's ridiculous.
Yes, so, absolutely.
I don't think we have to go any further than this, do we?
It's definitely Hank Aaron. Absolutely.
Yes. Hank Aaron.
I am surprised how much WAR Anthony Rizzo does have in his 10 years with
like 39 number 44, right?
Yeah, 39.
And that's still not even top 10 for the number. Obviously, not everybody above him have worn it for 10 plus years, but Danny Darwin, Darryl Strawberry, Jose Canseco wore it for 1 year in 1998. But Mike Cameron, that's a cool name to kind of think back on. I remember him as a child back in the Chicago White Sox. And then Roy Oswalt for 13 years. He had 50 WAR between the Astros, Phillies, Rangers, and the Rockies. I never would have guessed that he played for the Rockies, but I guess that was his final year in 2013. But
Yeah.
Hammer in Hank Aaron. Most of you know him as Henry Aaron as well. Old Henry Bar. That's who that candy bar was named after was Hank Aaron. The
Oh,
Henry.
really?
Yeah. You didn't know that?
No.
The more you know. Do, 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 do.
Because knowledge is
Hank
power.
Aaron. No. What's that? His knowledge is power. So welcome into episode 43, the Hank Aaron episode.
44.
Did I say 43? Man, it's been a long week. I've worked 36 hours in 3 days. I've slept like 11 and a half hours in the last 2 days combined.
Intensive work, too.
Yes. Severe weather, Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of people think that's fun doing all the tailgates, but you don't realize you got to do all the work that you would normally do an hour and a half before and then get there. So a lot of hustle and bustle, but not complaining here. Episode 44, excuse me, the Hank Aaron episode of Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. If you're new to the program, welcome in. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all at Barrels and Barrels Pod. You may be watching this on our YouTube channel at BNB Pod, at Barrels and Barrels Pod, but we also have a secondary channel which is just strictly bourbon related, and that is at BNB Bourbon. So you can go check us out over there if you haven't already. Subscribers almost up to 800 on the primary channel, but when it comes to the bourbon channel, we're really growing there. We started that a couple of weeks ago. We're already over 50 subscribers, which is pretty quick, and we're continuing to grow on views there. So go check us out over there if you're looking just strictly for bourbon. We'll get to our bourbon review here of this week in just a second. On Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, TikTok and Instagram. Man, it's been a rough start. We will only get better. X Barrels and Barrels. And then you can also find us Apple, Spotify, as well as iHeart, Google, and Amazon Podcasts. Don't forget to hit the review button or the rating button. We're at 20 out of 25-star ratings on Apple, 14 out of 14 on Spotify. And if you leave a review, that's a text review, which we hope one of you listening will do. We'll read it out on the next podcast as we jump on air. Before we get any further, we've got merch to sell. We're not wearing the shirts, but we've got the hats, and you can go check those out through the link tree in our Instagram bio. Again, you can find us on Instagram at Barrels and Barrels Pod. We've got Glencairns as well as Whiskey Wisdom glasses for sale. I think there's only
how many
two
wisdoms we got left?
I think we got two left. I've got a couple
Speaking
of
Glencairns
left. Yeah, and Tuith.
We also have Tuith's glasses.
Yes. Did I say Tuith? I thought
No,
I said wisdom.
You said wisdom, and then you said we have two left, and I said speaking of two left.
Oh, clever.
We have two withs.
Two withs. But you can go head on over to our Instagram account and go buy those there. We also have T-shirts, which we'll show later off in the show. But if you want to buy those, go head on over to CharlieMikeNeverWeekend.com. You can get those right out the door, $25 shipped to you. And I'm not lying when I tell you it's one of the most comfortable, if not the most comfortable T-shirt that I own. I wear it too much that I have to wash it too much. That's the one issue there. But yes, thank you. Welcome in. This is episode 44. As I mentioned, we've got glassware, we've got T-shirts, we've got hats. We've also got stickers if you want to check those out as well. Head on over to our Instagram page if you haven't already. Without further ado, let's get into the bourbon. Yes. And before we do that, this segment is brought to you by Whiskey Towers, whiskeytowers.com. Use promo code Whiskey Weather, and that is going to get you 10% off. And what is a whiskey tower? Think of a beer tap for your whiskey.
Yes, it's absolutely perfect to put your everyday players in and just be able to pull from it way too easily than you're already pulling from the bottles as it is.
Whether you're making a cocktail, you're pouring something neat, or you're just looking to have a party where it's easier for some people.
Tap, right?
I've done that a couple times. Hey, just a little pour right in from the tap. So head on over to whiskeytowers.com. Use promo code, all capital, Whiskey Weather. It's scrolling there at the bottom of your screen, and you can get 10% off your order. And that is what the bourbon segment is sponsored this week. And this week we are going with one of the bigger releases every fall. It is Elijah Craig Barrel Proof This is going to be batch C923. And the big thing about this batch, do you know, is the years. This is supposedly the oldest batch that has ever been released, at least for barrel proof as a batch number. Now, they've had
dang.
single barrels that they've given out that are older than this, but this comes in at 13 years and 7 months old, which
Dang.
they used to be 12 years. And until the B batch this year, they had all been 12 years. So the B batch this year was just under 12 at 11 and 6, I believe. And now this year's C batch, which it goes C923. C stands for the third one, distributed in the 9th month of the year, which is September, and the year is 2023. So this is one of those bigger and more sought after releases, and especially because of the 13-year, 7-month age statement, a lot of people have been snagging this. MSRP usually right around $69.99 to $80. I grabbed this one at Kentucky Bourbon Fest for right at that $79.99 price point. It has gone up a little bit, but you're getting 13-year-old whiskey at barrel proof for $80.
The sticker changed on that guy. Actually says the age statement on the front where
Yeah,
A
it used
says
to
on
say
the
it right
side.
here. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why I said the second one, batch B this year, was the first time they
New
changed it.
sticker.
Yeah. So
I thought I
it
had
puts.
B for some reason. I don't. I
We
have
did.
A.
Did we not do a review on B? I know we did a review on A earlier this year. We may not have
We
done
did
B.
A.
But so 133 proof. That's 66.5 ABV. So
Woo, doggy.
it's a hot one. So it's, I think, the hottest proof on an ECBP in the last 2 or 3 years, because last year's were all into the 120s, and the first 2 batches this year were under 130. That's for sure. So this one is a hotly contested and sought after bottle right now. I'm so lucky to grab this. And as always, this comes in from Heaven Hill with the same mash bill as always.
There it is.
78, 10, and 12. So this is a lower rye, higher malted barley mash. I didn't realize that until I was doing the research a couple months ago, and then I totally forgot about it until just now. And yeah, so this is one of my favorite releases every year. We tend to, and I think Elijah Craig might be my go-to bottle, honestly. Whether it's small batch, barrel proof, I've got 6 of the last.
In the past, it's not a super, it's not hot and doesn't torch the tongue. And it
Right.
has the good flavor that comes through. It's
Yeah.
not syrupy like the small batch could be.
Yeah.
This is an easy go-to usually.
Yeah. So I've given it a pour. Have you poured yours up yet and given it
I
a
have
nose?
it in my tooth. Yeah, my first nose is a little explosion there. It's very nosy.
Mm-hmm. Gonna sound weird. I get a little nail polish out of it. Nail polish remover. I love nail polish remover. I love nail polish remover.
You get notes for those that say, "Oh, I can't pick up notes. It just smells like alcohol." Try having someone else describe notes to you as you smell it, because that's how they'll start to come to you a little easier.
Did you get the nail polish right when I said?
Yes, that's why I said, "Oh," because it stunk. The first bomb to me was cherry.
Yep, I've got oak and cherry written down. Almost like a creme brulee too.
Oh yeah,
like creme brulee. If someone was writing these down, going, "How the hell did they get all these combined and still think that this is fantastic?" You can definitely tell. You can get the proof on the nose. Like sometimes it doesn't totally come through, but the ethanol, I think, at least the heat from this, comes through for sure.
Yeah, I feel like lately I pick up mint really easily. I don't think it's heavy mint. Yeah, I'm getting mint in everything
for like the last 3 months.
I think it's like the tail end of the alcohol nose that I'm picking up as quote mint. It may not be mint actually.
Could be
just that tail end alcohol that I'm thinking is a slight mint hint.
A mint hint. That should be the title of this. I get a cherry oak bomb for sure. Michael's giving it the old Kentucky chew, and
So
he's
what
about
would
to
you
get
think?
that
What do you
nice
think of this
Kentucky hug.
nose? What do you
I
think of
like
this
it.
nose?
I think it trends sweeter, so I would anticipate I've had this before, so I already kind of have an idea of what I'm pulling into because I did try this at Kentucky Bourbon Fest before I bought it. But yeah, it's.
Were you gonna buy it before you tried it, anyways, or did you
I
try it?
wasn't. I tried it before I bought it. I tried it before I bought it.
Roll Tide.
Roll damn tide. There's the Alabama rubbing off on me. No, I was gonna. I mean, I always try to buy the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof if I get a shot because I know I usually love them. There have been some batches that I don't like as much, but yeah, I was going. I mean, look at the color on this thing. That thing
It
is
is a
dark.
yeah. It is got a little reddish hue to it, even.
Yep. So right off the bat, you definitely feel the heat, but it's not overpowering. For a 133, you would think, "Why is it on fire? My mouth is on fire." But that's not the case with this. It is. I'm not going to call it smooth, but the mouthfeel on it, there's a tingle for sure, but it's not even. I think last week we did low gnome, right?
Yes, dude. I don't know if I told you that thing.
That was the identical
torched,
proof.
That thing
Identical proof.
torched my tongue. I felt like I had eaten a mouthful of warheads, and my tongue for like 2 days was done.
Oof. That's not good.
Lemon warheads, to be more specific.
Lemon warheads?
Lemon ones
those
are
were
the
the best.
sourest.
No.
Which one was then? Black cherry?
Black cherry was the green apple always seemed to get me the most.
Ooh, is your mouth watering now thinking about them?
Yeah. Yep.
What do you get
okay.
right off the bat?
Oak. It's straight up oak. It's more of a bitter. I thought I was going to get some more sweetness out of it, but it's oak right off the front. I get a little sweet, more confectioner sugar through the middle half of that. And then the finish itself is pretty tame comparative to what I would expect with a 133, right? You would expect it to be hot and heavy through the entire thing. I enjoy this very, very much.
I'm having to control myself from downing this thing because it is delicious. I get this. The finish for me is very fruity, and it just is staying in my mouth here. The roof, everything. It's sticking around for a good time.
Yeah, definitely a lot of cherry after the oak. And I get that baking. I'd say that this matches the nose. It's just not quite as sweet as I think the nose. Like my mouth is real watery right now.
Yeah.
Like Pavlov's dog watery in a way.
So would you say this is complex? Does it have complexity?
In a way, yes, but I don't think it's as complex as a lot of the other things we've had as of late. I think this is pretty simple and to the point, right? It's the same on the nose as it is on the palate for me. Maybe 3-4 notes at most. Sometimes we're like, well, I got this, I got that. Or sometimes they go for more of a roller coaster ride. Like we had a couple where we're like, oh, and then hard right turn and then a hard left turn. I think that this is pretty simple, straightforward. Same thing from front to back and on the nose. I wouldn't call it terribly complex, but I think that it's a very well put bourbon.
It's a classic bourbon roller coaster.
Yes.
You got your start, your mid tier, and your finish. All a classic. It doesn't have the and Barrel Vantage and BRT2 is the most complex ones that I always think of. The finish has multiple aspects to it, where this has a classic bourbon finish.
It's a total classic bourbon. I get a little bit more of that malted barley. There's not as much of a rye presence to it because of the lower rye. Maybe that's why I trend to go towards the Elijah Craig, because I don't mind higher ryes. It's just I think that this hits everything perfectly. So on our Barrels and Barrels of Bourbon and Baseball podcast rating seal, Michael, where do you have batch C923 as I get you? It's just like the perfect timing with a waitress or a waiter walking up to the table at a restaurant. Well, how's everything going?
I almost kind of do it like I'm hoping to get another sip as you're saying all that.
Yeah.
Because I'm in between two levels here.
I know what they are.
They're not DFA and bench. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I know that.
I want to give this guy an all-star.
Boom. Hey, now it's an all-star.
I think it's got enough of a sweetness to it, but it's not overly sweet. That I like. One of my favorite descriptions of something that's perfectly sweet is a marshmallow sweetness to it.
Yeah,
Marshmallows
like the
aren't
toast,
overly
like
sweet.
as if like the toasted Elijah Craig would be what you're talking about then.
Yeah, yeah. Or the one I just killed it was a Old Forester single barrel strength. That one that I
You
had from
finally
here in
did.
Huntsville. I finally killed it, and I think I waited too long. It had like just like a 1 ounce pour left in it, and I had that in there so long. I think I
Mhm.
tainted it a little bit by having that much air to bourbon for a while.
Yeah. Well, it means you just gotta go find another one.
That's
So,
right. So,
Michael.
Brennan. So I went all star. Brandon, what do you got? This Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C923.
All right, buddy. We need to talk here, sir.
Oh no!
I want to let you know that you've made the All-Star team and that you're going to be making the trip. But yeah, I'm going to also go with an All-Star.
Congratulations, C923.
See, the best part is when I tried this the first time, I like really loved it, but I was like, that is not exactly what it tastes like because it was at Kentucky Bourbon Fest and their like tasting table was directly in the sun, and this thing had been baking for like 3 hours. And when I say it was hot, it wasn't hot as in like the alcohol. It was like I drank a hot
Temperature.
tea, and I was like, "What the
Gross.
hell was that?" But it was still good and full of flavor. I was just like, I bet you that's even better at room temperature, and it certainly is. So yeah, and my mouth continues to just water,
Uh-huh.
like, and it's incredible. Like that
It
doesn't
makes me
happen
want
too
more.
often,
That's why
right? And you're
I'm
like, I need to
killing
go
this
more.
thing.
I need to get another pour. I need to get another sip. But yeah, for those of you who are just new to our podcast, if you've never chimed in or listened before, we do our rating scale in a baseball rating scale that starts out right at the top, Hall of Famer. That's the best it can get. Think of all the baseball players that have ever played. 1% make the Hall of Fame, and the best pours you're ever going to have, those are the Hall of Famers. Mikey, you just rated this an all-star. What's that?
All-star is those guys just that get selected. They're on every team, and they're kind of the best of their individual teams. Even if you every team has to have at least one all-star by rule.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the best of each team. Those are the bottles that you have backups to. Every time you find one, you buy it. And it's one that you only make sure you give to your bourbon aficionados. You're not giving out an all-star to someone who mixes Blands with Coke.
Right. Next goes to everyday player. That is just like the player in your lineup that you have there every day in, day out. They may not make the all-star team, but you can consistently expect them in the lineup and expect them to contribute on a day-to-day basis, giving you their best on an everyday thing. Just like a baseball player, this is something that you always want in your lineup, whether that's on your bar. The moment you're done with it, you go buy another one because you just have to have another bottle.
Right. And then we got after everyday player is bench player. It's not a knock because bench players have their roles. Whether that's a pinch hit home run, pinch runner, guy out of the bullpen. These can be your dessert bourbons. These can be your really high proof. These can be your ones that have a certain flavor to them that you don't necessarily want to have all that often, but it's something that has its spot on your shelf that you're like, you know what, I could go for that tonight.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, that DFA stands for designate for assignment. If you know anything about baseball, that means you're kicked off the team. See you later. Go find yourself a new home. So this week, both
Yep.
Michael
See
and
ya.
I have given this an all-star. Is that the first time we've both all-starred something? No, BRT2. BRT2, we both gave an all-star. But I think this is the second time we've both all-starred a certain bottle at the same time.
I want to say so.
Hey, cheers to that, buddy.
Let's go, buddy. Let's go.
There we go. So again, this has been brought to you by Whiskey Tower. So head on over to whiskeytowers.com. 10% off your order if you use the promo code Whiskey Weather at checkout. Again, 10% off a Whiskey Tower. So that's like one of the coolest things. I wouldn't put this in a whiskey tower. It would go too fast. And yes, overall, a fantastic pour here. As always, the guys over at Heaven Hill, the ladies over at Heaven Hill, what they're doing with Elijah Craig and Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, they knock it out of the ballpark. Is this the best batch we've had?
I think so. I don't think we've reviewed 2 or 3 of the Logic batches in our 1 year of podcasting. And I think this is the highest rating we've given them.
Yeah, and I'm taking the it's not even that it's 133, and we're snobs when it comes to
Just
proof,
a little
but
bit. Just a little bit.
It doesn't sit like a 133 though.
No, I'm killing this thing. I'm not getting torched at all. I just wanted to
You're going to
say
be torched later in the podcast.
when you're out shopping for this, if you're new to Elijah Cook Barrel Proof, it's the barrel proof ones that have the batch number on it. It's not the single barrel selects or private selects that you might see at stores.
Some of those could be 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. These are more likely going to be closer to 12 years. Right into the microphone.
You saw I tried to mute it.
Yes. I did. But that has been it for our bourbon portion, and now we welcome in our baseball friend Wes for the baseball portion of the Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Wes, how you doing tonight, my man?
Man, I'm doing great. You guys wore the red shirts. The Cubs are playing the Braves in that September playoff baseball type series. So I felt it only appropriate to oppose what you were wearing and wear the Barrels and Barrels blue.
And is it the most comfy shirt you've ever worn?
It is the most comfortable shirt I have ever owned.
I'm
Brandon
telling
is
you,
not lying when he says that. It is legit the most comfortable shirt I have.
So welcome into episode 44. As always, we transition from baseball to bourbon with a trivia question. So I've got a trivia question again for you two this week. Wes was 2 for 2 on the answers last week. Michael went 50-50. And I also have another 2-parter this week for you guys. This one is going to pay homage to one of the best baseball players we have ever seen play in our lifetime, Miguel Cabrera, or a lot of people call him Miggy. It is his final week, and we'll get to him a little bit later on in the podcast. But the trivia question, dude has 3,168 career hits. You can answer it one of 2 ways. Which pitcher does he have the most hits off of, or which pitcher does he have the most home runs off of in his career? You can answer both. You could try to answer one of them. You've got a 50-50 shot here because it cuts the amount of pitchers he's ever faced. But yeah, which pitcher did he call daddy?
Which pitchers he called?
Or which pitchers had to call him daddy?
Most hits or most home runs. You just got to look at who was in the AL Central the longest. Justin Verlander was there for a good bit, but I don't think
on his
Miguel
team.
Cabrera. On his team.
Yeah, he was on the Tigers.
Thank you for that clarification, Brandon.
Scherzer was
also
if
he starts hitting home runs off his teammates
in the backfields, maybe.
Shane Bieber was in the league, but not long enough. I don't even know if I can provide an answer. That's tough.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
So think White Sox, Twins, Royals, and Guardians were the Indians at that time. Those would most likely be the teams that you're talking about.
Who was before Bieber? Who was their ace?
Kluber?
Yeah. I'm going to say the most home runs off Kluber.
Okay.
Oh, man, I'm going to go off the wall here and say Mark Burley.
Mark Burley.
That's pretty good.
White Sox.
That's home runs or hits?
I'm going to go home runs off Burley.
All right. Hits, I'm going to go Zach Greinke.
Oh, okay. That's a good one.
You got another answer, Wes? Or
is that just covering both?
No, I think that's about as deep as I can go.
All right. So you were close with your guess of Corey Kluber. Corey Kluber gave up 6 home runs and 26 hits, which are both second most in both categories. The most hits was James Shields at 27 hits.
We should have known that one.
We should have.
And the most home runs was Phil Hughes, who was a former Twins pitcher, and he gave up 7.
White Sox, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Did he pitch for the White Sox? Me. I
No,
don't
I'm
think
thinking
so.
of Phil
Phil Hughes is
Humber.
Yankees.
You're feeling
Yeah.
Phil Humber, yeah, not Phil
Yeah.
Hughes.
Yeah,
Hughes was
Phil
Yankees.
Hughes, Yankees in Minnesota, and I think he
Yeah.
pitched like for a half season with the Padres. But yes, Phil Hughes. Get this line off of Phil Hughes: 435, 469, 1043 with an OPS of 1513.
Daddy's home.
and that's in 46 at bats. He hit 7 bombs. He was 20 for 46 against Phil with 7 bombs. James Shields, he got 10 doubles off of. But yeah, what a career for Miguel Cabrera, and we'll get to him later on. But yeah, those are a couple of kind of off the wall names in a way, like not the top of the only thing was Mark Burley, I think, left the White Sox in the early 2010s, so he didn't pitch as long while Miguel was in his prime
while he was
in the
there.
heyday there.
I was
But that
trying
was
to
a good
line
guess
up
as well.
the Triple Crown timeline, like with who the White Sox
Mhm.
had at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, and James Shields pitched for the White Sox and the Royals within that time frame too. So, yeah, Miggy, and the numbers we're going to show you later on, they are really damn impressive. But that is our trivia question. Before we head on into the full baseball part of the podcast, we want to offer our listeners something cool. You're going to get a beta testing part of an app. And we talked about it last week, but if you've ever been to a baseball game, I know Michael collected ticket stubs. I've collected ticket stubs growing up, but it's kind of an app for that nowadays. You put in the information of any baseball game you've ever been to, any sporting event, really. We're talking hockey, baseball, and NCAA football, NCAA basketball, NFL, whatever it is. If you've been to a game, you put this in this app. It's called Memento Live Sports Scrapbook. And when you sign up, use promo code all lowercase Bourbon Baseball. That's going to get you access to the app before it becomes widespread to everybody. And you're going to get the beta portion of this. But the cool part of all of this is I want to know how Jake Arrieta did when I was at games that he pitched. Or I want to know how Chipper Jones was when I was in attendance. And down the road, that's going to give you that.
Do the Cubs really lose every time Michael goes to the game?
Yeah, we're going to find out once you start inputting that information in.
I've started. I got to get my ticket stub from Mama's house.
Yeah. I've got this year's in so far, but I've got to go back and shuffle through my previous years. But again, go head on over to whatever it is. If you've got an Apple or an Android, go find that in your app store. It's called Memento Live Sports Scrapbook. Use that promo code Bourbon Baseball, all lowercase. And you're going to get the beta portion of that app, which is exclusive to you and anybody else who's gotten in as well. And then down the road, you're going to see more and more cool information coming in out of them, especially as we get closer and closer to the end of the year. So we're now into the baseball portion of the podcast. Boy, the last several days have been fun and not so fun, depending on what franchise you root for. A lot going on in baseball. Let's start with the AL West. That AL West. Probably the best divisional race we've had all year, right?
Oh yeah, it's like you can't really tell a difference between teams. I feel like Houston and Texas are right there, neck and neck, as far as just pure talent. Seattle, I mean, I think Seattle has the best rotation of them all, but not quite up there with the lineup. Man, I don't know. I'm like every day that I come home, that's what I want to watch is what's going on in the AL West. It's so hard not to watch.
How can we with how bad Texas was in the month of August? How the heck are they in first place all of a sudden again?
By several games.
Yeah,
it's not just like
the 2 games, right?
2.5 right now as we're recording.
2.5 as of this recording, and I believe they hold the tiebreaker over both teams, the Astros and the Mariners, don't they?
Yeah, I believe they do.
So that makes it 3.5 and 5. So they basically they need to win one game, I believe, versus the Mariners this weekend, as they're playing a 4-game set. If the Mariners were to sweep them, they still wouldn't have the tiebreaker because Texas has put the hammer to them earlier in the year. But oof.
What's their elimination numbers? MLB.com doesn't have that on their site somehow.
Did they take it down? It used to be
their magic number.
Yeah, what's Texas's magic number right now? It's got to be like 1.
So Texas is did they take that down? It used to be there. It was there
Yeah,
yesterday.
they used to have a magic number there where it's like they need one game, win or loss to clinch.
Maybe it's on the app only.
It wasn't
I
on the
saw it
app
on the app.
earlier. I noticed
No,
it.
it's not on the app
It
anymore.
disappeared off the app earlier. Yeah.
This is
I believe
prime
it's
time
1.
magic number time.
Right.
So 21 hours ago, Sports Illustrated said that Texas magic number was 2. So that was as of yesterday. So depending on what happened today, I haven't looked to see.
Okay.
Could be down to 1.
Well, they're
Yeah,
tied
Texas
right now.
was
Go ahead.
Texas was off yesterday or today on
He-
Thursday. So
No,
one of the
Houston's
days.
off today. Texas is playing Seattle today.
Yeah.
Texas beat the Anaheim or the Los Angeles of Anaheim. What the hell am I trying to say?
Los
Angels?
Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Why can't we just call them the Anaheim Angels like we fucking used to?
Bring back the rally monkey, man. Come on.
Yeah. The Los Angeles Trouts. Yeah, so it's 2. They clinched tonight with a win over Seattle, I believe. Well, at least they clinch a wild card spot, I believe,
Mhm.
with a win over Seattle. If they haven't, they haven't done that already either.
Nope. I think the division's easier right now for them.
Yeah, the division is going to be the best way for the. I mean, they're likely going to have that, unless Houston sweeps the Diamondbacks this weekend in Arizona, which is going to be hard because Houston.
Has a problem.
Houston is kind of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They just got swept by the freaking Royals this past
Royals,
weekend
yeah.
in Houston, but away this year they are 48-30. At home, they're 39 and 42.
They could have put first place away by doing the reverse of that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. It's kind of ridiculous how bad of a year
Maybe
they
they're
have
doing it on
had.
purpose. Maybe they're doing it on purpose because they want to face the Twins.
They want the. That's exactly. So it's strategic seeding. That's what they're doing. Is that?
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
Exactly.
Nobody will expect anything if we get swept by the Royals. They'll never know.
Not just swept, they lost 5 out of 6 to the Royals with the series before back in KC. But yeah, so the standings there again, 89 and 69, and then 87 and 72 for the Astros. Mariners are a game and a half back of the Astros, and then we pop up that AL wild card. That's what the final 2 seeds look like, and then the first team out, which is Seattle. Seattle needs to basically sweep this weekend. 4 games versus Texas, and hope that the Diamondbacks do some damage. They do hold the tiebreaker over Houston because I believe they're 9-3 versus the Astros this year, or 9-4. So they have the tiebreaker. They just are a game and a half back, and that's going to be a lot. They're going to need to win against Texas. If they go 3-1, that means Houston has to go 1-2.
Which they're very capable of doing. Yeah, the Mariners losing 2 of 3 to the Astros wasn't officially the nail in the coffin, but it was pretty close. It put them pretty far behind the 8 ball. But they got Logan Gilbert going tonight. He looks pretty good so far.
Yeah, it's currently in the top of the second, tied 0-0 with 2 outs as we're watching this right now. Last night, that was a heartbreaker for the Mariners. They lost 8-3 was it 8-3 or 8-5?
8-3, yeah.
8-3. Benches clearing, some words exchanged between J-Rod and was it Hector Neris?
Hector Neris,
Yep, Neris, yeah. People hold grudges these days, I guess.
Yeah. Did you see, like, he literally walked towards the dugout?
Yeah, walked towards the dugout, yeah. And it was I forget, I think it might have been John Boy that did a breakdown of it. It
had to be, yeah.
Julio hit a home run last year around this time and was basically it wasn't the home run that put him into the playoffs, but it was a huge home run in like a playoff atmosphere. And Julio was pumped up, and I guess Neris held a grudge for exactly a year.
He came out and said something about they're just super close and competitive. They hung out a lot. He apologized to Julio and his family, said they have respect for each other and they're just so competitive with each other after spending so much time over the COVID like lockdown together. That's what he came out and said.
That's kind of weird still.
The body language didn't say that.
Didn't say I'm your
but-
best friend here.
Yeah, exactly.
He watched himself on camera and was like, "Damn, I look like a fool."
So that is the AL West, the AL wild card. As I already tossed the standings up there, but it's going to take the Blue Jays still haven't clinched either, and they've got a series this weekend, I believe, versus Tampa Bay. Correct?
Right.
I think that's
in Toronto. Yep.
in Toronto. And Tampa's already clinched, and they can't improve their seeding anymore. So does Tampa not say lay down, but
rest some guys?
right. Because they're going to have to face Toronto or Houston, depending on whoever the 5 seed is.
As injury laden as the Rays have been all year, it would not surprise me to see them rest some guys.
Right.
Yandy Diaz right now is nursing a hamstring issue, so I'm sure he's taking all the rest he can get until the playoffs.
When I was doing some research earlier today, I went to go look at the probables, and neither team had announced a starting pitcher for any of the 3 games at this point.
Yeah.
So, or to that time of the year where we have no clue who it's like, whose line is it anyways? We're making it up as we go.
At this point in time,
really
the Rays are starting people that you didn't even know their name before this season. Basabe and Junior Caminero. That guy came out of nowhere. Nobody knew who they were before the season started.
That's half the team.
Yeah.
Usually it seemingly would be. So do we have any predictions here for the AL West, the AL wild card? Texas, I'm assuming, is going to be the team that just kind of takes that. But what are you guys' thoughts?
Houston is playing the DBacks. I think Houston gets the better of them. They did tonight already. No, it's the other way around.
They're off. They didn't play today.
Oh, I was looking at something.
Arizona lost to the White Sox.
Oh, okay. So starting this weekend is Arizona versus Houston. I think the Astros get the better spot there of the wild card over Toronto. Okay. I don't think the Mariners make it.
Yeah, I think the ship has kind of sailed there. What do you think, Wes?
I think I'm right there with you. Almost the exact same. Yeah, I mean, I think the Rays probably take 1 or 2 from Toronto, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I don't see the Mariners sweeping the Rangers. I just don't see that happening in September when they're all jockeying for position. And every game, every pitch, means a lot. They're all going to be tuned in. So I can't really say that I see the Mariners sweeping. That's not to say that it couldn't happen, but yeah, I think it ends up Mariners are out. Blue Jays end up in that last wild card spot, and then Texas or Houston jumps them.
Who ends up winning the AL West? Did you say Houston wins it?
No, so Houston jumps the Blue Jays, but the Rangers end up winning the West.
I am going to say Texas wins the AL West. I think that the Blue Jays will actually take 2 of 3 versus Tampa and clinch that 5th seed and face Tampa later on in the week. It's going to be interesting to see how Seattle does at home, because Seattle at home, a much better team than on the road, 42-35. I guess not much better, but they've got 38 losses on the road. They could almost end up with the exact same record depending on how the series goes. I think they take 2 out of 4, which is not going to be enough because Houston will win 1 of the 3 games in Arizona. I think it goes Tampa, Toronto, and Houston for the final in the wild card in the AL, with sadly the team that I have my money on, the Seattle Mariners.
I was supposed to say, man, giving up on them now, but
they just... Both the teams I've been rooting for this month decided that they were going to shit their pants in September. So and that's the perfect segue to go into the NL wildcard race, because coming into today, the Chicago Cubs were tied with the Marlins, but they just lost within the last 10 minutes to the Atlanta Braves to get swept away from Atlanta in a heartbreaking series, 82-77 now. They are now a half game back of the Miami Marlins, who just took a 2-1 lead in the top of the ninth in a rain-delayed
they didn't.
ninth inning.
Yes, they did.
And they've got runners on first and second with 2 outs in the top of the ninth in a rain delay. And I wonder if the rain had a little bit to do with it, because it did look like things were getting a little sloppy out there. But Jazz Chisholm almost hit a home run to tie the game off the top of the wall. He pimped it, though, and he almost got thrown out at second base. But yeah, it looks like the Marlins are going to come back and take at least a game lead over the Chicago Cubs, which kind of, in my mind, it seals the fate on the Cubs. What do you
They
think?
have to sweep. They have to sweep now, and the Marlins have to lose 2 of 3
You have to lose 2 of 3 on the road at Pittsburgh.
at Pittsburgh.
Well, Pittsburgh has been playing spoiler as of late, taking 2 out of 3 versus the Cubs last week, and then 2 out of 3 with one of the biggest. The Reds had the worst loss in their franchise's history on Saturday. I don't know if you knew that. They were up 9-0 after 3 innings and lost 13-12 on Saturday.
That was the biggest comeback in one of
The season.
I think
Yep.
it was like MLB history in like the last 80 years or something. I saw a statistic on it that was pretty insane. It might have been it was their biggest in franchise history. I know that.
Yeah. The Reds had never blown a 9-run lead. So, so the Pirates will be hosting the Marlins. The one thing about the Marlins is I don't know how they're doing it starting pitching wise, because their 2 best players have just been put on the IL for the rest of the year.
Yuri and Sandy.
Yeah, Sandy's been shut down. So Sandy's done for the year no matter what they make. And then Yuri was put on the IL over the weekend.
Who are they running out there besides Jesus Luzardo? Braxton Garrett?
Braxton
Garrett, Jesus Luzardo, Cabrera's actually
Edward
been
Cabrera. That's right.
a lot
He's
better.
Actually,
He's not walking the house anymore over his last 5 or 6 starts. I mean, the first few starts that guy came up and he walked like 6 or 7. You're like, this guy had no idea where it's going.
Yeah.
I remember he shut down the Cubs, though, and struck out like 15, didn't he?
Yeah.
Who didn't?
And their 4th pitcher, Johnny Cueto.
Oh, that's
Johnny
right.
Cueto
That's right.
started. Yeah.
Johnny Cueto. He started, today, right? Didn't he?
Today, yeah. He was actually pretty good today.
Well, the Mets didn't score until the 8th inning, so he must have been good.
Their bullpen's not too bad. I don't think it's too. AJ Puck, David Robertson, Matt Moore.
Luzardo started today.
Cueto was yesterday then.
Yep, Cueto was game 2 yesterday. In the game that they came back and won in. They were down, or they were up 2-0, then tied 2-2, and then they won 4-2 in the 10th inning, I believe. So yeah, the Marlins kind of, I think, just took that final spot. That's basically also going to eliminate the Cincinnati Reds, who now will fall to 2 games back of the Marlins. They do hold the tiebreaker, I believe, because
the Reds over the Marlins.
The Reds have the tiebreaker over the Marlins because that secondary, they are tied this year, 3-3 versus each other. But the secondary tiebreaker, this is something I want to talk to both of you guys about. This has got to be the dumbest secondary tiebreaker I've ever heard of. Your intra-division record, which has no bearing. Now, if it was the divisional record, like tiebreaker,
division
I get
race.
I get it. But if the Mets have...
Wait. So just to clarify, it's not the teams within your division that count. It's only the teams outside of your division that count.
Mm-mm. So the Reds have a record in the Central of 20-29, while Miami is 25-20. Oh no! So they now have the So the Marlins will have the tiebreaker over the Reds, 26-25 within their Eastern Division, and the Reds are 20-29. So the Marlins have the
within
tiebreaker.
your division. Okay,
Mhm.
that got it.
But I think it makes more sense when it's for a divisional race, not the wild card.
What else would make a more sense of a second tiebreaker? I'm trying to think of what would make, besides records,
run differential, records versus National League opponents, because you're facing the same teams.
Yeah, I would
It's a
say
different
National
schedule.
League.
Yeah,
I would go National League.
With today's schedule, like it's kind of all over the place on
Right.
who you're facing, across the other league.
But it's not always been about fairness, because it used to be you played your division how many times?
19.
19 times.
So it's never been quite
18
about
times.
fairness. Because, I mean, look at the AL Central this year. The Twins are just really walking into the playoffs. I don't think they are that great of a team.
It's always been about winning your division, though, right?
True. Right.
It doesn't matter who your division's in. You got to win your division. I think it's the dumbest. Like, I get that if that was like down the road, but like, why does your intra-divisional record matter in a tiebreaker versus a team that's not in your division?
Yeah. So if the head-to-head is equal, then they go to your divisional record.
Yeah.
I don't know. That one's a little strange.
Yeah.
I got to ask you guys this question, though. Given where the Cubs are right now, and I won't mention how they've played the last few days.
Go ahead and do it.
It hasn't been great. It's been pretty ugly. But
just go ahead. Just say the word sweep. Okay, Wes. I know you want to say the word sweep. Just say it.
It's been a sweep series. Is that what he's gonna say? Yeah.
Yeah, but it was ugly. Like it wasn't like we 100% earned it. Is the thing. It was the drop fly ball on right. It was the walk off last night, and today, like the error on Assad. Oh man.
So the Cubs were right there.
I
The
feel for
Cubs
you
did
guys.
not get demolished.
They
right
beat
there.
themselves is the thing. They beat
If
themselves.
Jed Hoyer actually believed in this frickin' team, he would have bought another arm at the deadline, and then this bullpen wouldn't have been so overworked here in the month of September.
Yeah.
How often did he go to Mark Leiter Jr.? David Ross had to. That's his only guy in the month of August. Jose Cuas, we went and got Jose Cuas. That's really who you think is going to lock down a bullpen? I digress.
But if I had told you before this season started that the Cubs would be competing for a wild card, what would you have said?
Yes. You don't go inside Cody Bellinger for just. I mean, that is what Jed does. That's all he's ever done since he's been at the helm is buy guys to sell at the trade deadline.
He's only been at the helm for 2 years.
No way.
Exactly. That's all he's ever known is to buy guys for 1-year deals and sell them. He's not looking at the actual best interest of winning.
This was supposed to be the year where they were starting to get on the winning trend. My thought was 82 and 81 with if things went right. 82 and 80, and if things got right, you had a shot at the playoffs. I did think at the beginning of the year, you signed Dansby Swanson, you signed Cody Bellinger, and you put money out there for a starting pitcher and Jameson Taillon, who was supposed to be your 3. He's more of a 4 or 5 this year, but your team was supposed to compete. Through the first 5 weeks of the year, I think they were 17-7. They played very well. 17-10. They had played a very good start to the season. May was rough. Then Cody went out in the middle of May in Houston, crashing into the wall. You got swept by the Angels in LA. You got swept by the Marlins in Miami. And the team looked like crap until they started to climb back towards the end of June, which coincided with Bellinger coming back. And then after the second half started, they were gangbusters. From July, I think, 19th on, they've had one of the better records in the National League.
Yeah, they got some huge starts from Assad down the stretch.
Assad, Jordan Wicks.
Yeah.
The guys that you paid to be here, and Dansby and Cody, were the guys that carried you through the middle and end of the summer. Just Dansby's guest. I have no idea what the hell happened the other night.
I don't know, man. He looked
here's
lost after that.
Here's the thing. It's not Seiya Suzuki's fault. You had a 6-0 lead in the 6th inning of that game.
He should have never been in that position, right? Like,
Correct.
He should have never been in that position for that to be what everybody remembers, right? Like, now that's all over social media. That's what people say, oh, Cubs collapse. And it's like, well, the truth is, the Cubs were up 6-0. So
they were up 6-0, and then they were up 3-0 in the next game, and they lost both of those games. Yesterday's in extras. Sorry, I got to pause while they show a montage real quick. Okay, sorry. Game's over now, by the way. You get it?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
personally, I think that's ridiculous, one way or the other. What whether he stole the 70th base or I get it has never been done before, but they should do it for every time he steals a base, because every time he steals a base from here going forward, it's never
It's a
been done
record.
before.
Yeah.
And that's been the case ever since he hit his 40th home run. So they should have done it for number 69. They should have done it for 70. They should have done it for 71. They should do it every time he hits a home run. Just kind of ridiculous, I think, at this point. Especially had it happen in the first inning, sure, you're in the 10th inning of playoff race baseball and you're going to stop a game. I would be pissed if the Cubs did it. Like, you're really going to throw a 3-minute montage on the fucking video board in the middle of a playoff race in the 10th inning of a game where he's the game-winning run? I get it's cool.
On it. Like, we've done it for other things like Bonds and the home run race, and
so Bonds was the
different things, but like, I don't know, it wasn't like that particular achievement of 40-70 isn't something that baseball has traditionally measured as like historic value, right? No, mainly because it hasn't existed much or ever. So, but like baseball has always measured, the home runs as the thing, right? Or the hits or something of that nature. But like 40-70, I really enjoy the fact that athleticism is coming back into the game of baseball.
Oh, for sure.
40 and 70 is insane. I mean, that's just
ridiculous.
Insane, right? I don't know. I'm kind of impartial on the whole montage thing of it. They did it for Ricky Henderson when he stole however many bases, and they stopped the entire game and gave him presentation.
But that was the all-time record, was it not?
It was.
And it's like,
where do you put that? Like, this is like a record that he's created. It's not like the all-time stolen base record or the all-time home run record or the all-time hits record. I don't know. I'm impartial on it. I could go either way.
Just like that infield fly rule, right? Just like the infield fly rule. What's worse?
Oh, that was...
What was worse, the infield fly or that foul ball that gave the Cubs their first run?
Infield fly. No, infield fly.
Did I miss something?
In the first or second inning, the Cubs scored their first run. Candelario fouled the ball.
Oh, yeah, no,
off
that's
his
a
bat.
foul ball. Yeah, I saw that. But what's the infield fly thing?
Back in 2011?
Oh, the Braves, yeah. The wild card game, wasn't it?
Wild card game in 2011 when Andrelton Simmons went out to catch a ball. Or no, Andrelton Simmons hit the ball, was he not?
They didn't call infield fly.
They didn't call an infield fly.
No, they did.
They did call it, yeah.
Because he was in the deep left field, and they're like, wow, that's not the infield.
I think Simmons was the hitter. They called an infield fly. The ball ended up hitting the ground in short left field.
Yeah.
And then the Braves ended up losing and getting put out.
That was the wild card game. Yeah. And was that the year the Cardinals won the World Series? 2011?
I think it was.
No, they won. Yeah, they won in 2011 because Boston won in 2013. Wow. Yeah. Yesterday, I mean, the Cubs were gifted the first run yesterday. I don't really want to spend too much more time on the Cubs because, one, their season's done, and just the way that the last 2 to 3 weeks. Here's my thought. A lot of people are ragging on David Ross, and here's me saying it wasn't Ross's fault. You throw the guys that you were given. You play the guys that you were given. I had a lot of people talking to me. Why are they playing Miles Mastrobuoni? Well, Candelario and Nick Madrigal. Candelario and Nick Madrigal, they were on the IL. Hey, who are you going to play at third base?
I'm going to say this. I think David Ross needs serious consideration for manager of the year in the NL because coming into this year, I mean, you had the Cubs pretty far down the list, right? I mean, most MLB experts were not.
Michael had him in the playoffs.
Over the Padres, over the Dodgers, Braves, Mets,
I had
Cardinals,
the Dodgers out of the
playoffs. Yeah. But look, man, I got to say, given the cards that Ross was dealt, he's got to get manager of the year consideration. I mean, I think he's done a phenomenal job.
had they made the playoffs, I think he would have. I think he
Yeah.
would have been within that consideration. But the fact that they're going to be on the outside looking in, I think it's going to be a Skip Schumacher.
Yeah.
In the NL, or even a Torey Lovello, who's taken this Diamondbacks team, who was supposed to be a year or two away, into one of the best teams in the National League over the last couple of weeks. Last thing on the Cubs is it wasn't David Ross's fault. Jed Hoyer, as Michael said it early on, didn't do anything but Candelario and Jose Cuas at the deadline. Mark Leiter Jr. was a literal DFA in the offseason by the team he's pitching for. They designated him for assignment and then re-signed him after they cut him. Julian Merriweather, who's been pitching in late innings, he was a waiver claim from Toronto in the offseason. Jose Cuas had a 4+ ERA from the Royals when he got him at the deadline. Luke Little had never pitched in the major leagues before. Michael Fulmer was this.
Daniel Palencia.
He was a rookie who came up in the deal from the Andrew Chafin trade. The only guy who had real experience were Brad Boxberger, who's pitched like 10 innings and been hurt most of the year, and Michael Fulmer, who was trashed to start the year, had an amazing middle of the season, and then he hasn't pitched but 1 inning in the last 2 months. And then Adbert Elzele, who ended up being your closer, was a guy that you didn't even know was going to pitch outside of AAA this year because you didn't know what he had, because when he was starter, he was just a 5-inning, 3-run kind of guy. So they didn't build the bullpen the way they should have. But I think that this is a good stepping forward point. They just need to have the best offseason of any team next year moving forward, because the Reds are coming. The Pirates showed you this year that they've got talent, and the Cardinals aren't going to be dead last forever. So that's all I have on the Cubs.
Give me a couple of years, the Cardinals dead last. Give me a couple. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I would love it. I just don't think it's going to happen. So same thing we did with the AL West and the NL, in the AL wildcard. What do we think about the NL wildcard? Is it
right as it's pictured?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's actually again the Cubs are going to drop to 5. Honestly, the gasp. The Reds are on the road versus St. Louis. The Cubs are playing the Brewers. The Cubs are gassed. The Reds still have some energy. They've got younger guys who can play a little longer. And they're playing a team this weekend that is not as great in the St. Louis Cardinals. And they also hold the tiebreaker over the Cubs. So all it takes is a sweep and the Cubs to lose 1 game, and the Reds will jump them either way. So that's my thoughts. Any other thoughts? Michael said the same it is.
Same as it is. I think the Cubs have one more game to give it their all. That's it.
Well, they have 3, but
everything. No room for error at this point.
Right.
They got to sweep, and they got to hope that the Reds lose 1.
So the Cubs take on the Brewers. The Marlins will be at the Pirates. The Reds at the Cardinals. The Astros at the DBacks. In the AL, the Rays at the Blue Jays. Astros at DBacks, as I mentioned. And then Rangers are in a 4-game series with the Mariners, currently leading up 1-0 here in the bottom of the third. And JP Crawford just put one into the seats, just foul. But so that's going to be a series to watch. Playoff implications going forward here over the next couple of days. We're really going to find out who's in the playoffs, obviously, between now and the next time we record. But I think the last couple of weeks have been better than what this weekend's going to actually shape out to be. I think it's going to be kind of more of a dud than what we thought it was going to be. The last couple of weeks we've been like, it's going to come down to the final few games. But that loss to Houston yesterday for the Mariners, and the way that Texas has, like, they've been the best team, they've been the worst team. They've been the best team, they've been the worst team.
Yeah.
They're back to being the best team. Yeah. So moving forward, as we head on into the weekend, a couple of thoughts. The one that we started the baseball portion of this off with trivia, Miggy. It's the end. It's Miggy's final series, the last stand. He's going to be taking on his final opponent, suiting up. What do you expect? What do you think? You see his home run yesterday?
Oh, yeah. And he had a single too, right?
Yeah, he's 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs.
Yeah, right before it was right before a rain delay.
Mm-hmm. And they finished that game earlier today as we record. But I don't think we maybe we did, and it's just because he hasn't been Miggy the last couple of years. But did we take him for granted as a society?
I think we did in his later years. Like Miggy in his prime is hitter wise one of, if not the best pure hitter that I've ever seen in my lifetime. And
Right.
I think he and Pujols are right there as 1 and 2 of just pure hitters. That's average, that's home runs, that's gap to gap power, that's hitting the opposite way.
Hitting for average.
Hitting for average. Now, granted, I grew up watching Bonds, but I was still young when Bonds was kind of in his prime, like the 04, late 90s to early 2000s. But man, for me, Miguel Cabrera I will always remember just how good he was and how feared he was as a hitter. Man, the year he won the Triple Crown, it was one of the most amazing things to watch. A lot like we're talking about Acuna, right? And he's doing things that we haven't seen before. Like Miguel Cabrera won the Triple Crown, and it hadn't happened in 20 or 30 years?
Maybe 40 or 50, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was insane watching him do that, and that was so much fun. Really gonna miss watching Miggy. I know the last few years have just been kind of down for him. He's a little older, doesn't move as well now, but really gonna miss watching him play.
You mentioned the Triple Crown. Go ahead, Michael.
I was gonna say the guy was a top 5 MVP candidate 7 years.
Yeah,
that's huge.
So his 2012 season was the year he won the Triple Crown. 44 bombs, 139 ribbies, and he batted .330. I think the following year was an even better year.
It was.
He hit .348, 44 bombs, 2 less RBIs. His OPS in the first year was .999. His OPS in the second year was .1078. And he won the MVP, but he didn't win the Triple Crown because Chris Davis hit 50 plus home. 51.
Yeah. I remember that happening. And then Chris Davis got signed to a long extension after that and never played again.
He's still getting paid. So get this, Miggy from 2011 to 2015 led the league in batting average 4 out of those 5 years. The only year he didn't was 2014, and he hit a paltry .313.
That is so good.
That's so good.
Like, that is so hard to do.
From 2005 to 2016.
And so think about it this way. What is Luis Arraez at right now?
Ooh, that's a good call. Luis Arraez.
Because Luis Arraez is considered the best
pure hitter
source of average
in
the MLB right now. And I think he's around the 340s
353.
350s. And you're telling him Miggy Cabrera in his prime was right there, not only doing that 330s, 340s, but also hitting home runs. Like
44 home runs. Yeah. So from 2005 through 2016, that's 12 seasons. He hit above 300 in all but one. All but one. In that season he didn't hit above 300, it was 292. He still led the league with 37 home runs, and that was 2008. His first year in Detroit.
Yeah, Miggy went from the generation where hitting above 300 was what the elite did to now the elite just have to hit 280. Where the elite were hitting 320, 330, and the elite right now you can win MVP and hit 280.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. His last 4 years, if we go back to 2020, it's kind of where his downfall average wise went 250, 256, 254, 250. But some of the numbers, as I was doing the research on this, I'm popping it up on the screen. 3,169 hits. So, that ranks 17th all time. His home run yesterday tied Mel Ott for the 25th most. Doubles, 624 is the 13th most in Major League Baseball history. Doubles. That's ridiculous.
That's insane.
And I think what the most incredible and most insane part of all of this, he did all of that with his 2 primary stadiums as Pro Player Stadium in Miami and then Comerica Park, which is a pitcher's park. And still today, after they moved the fence in this year, is still a pitcher's park. And he still hit 511 home runs in his career.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Could you imagine in like a Fenway or like a New York,
Wrigley,
Yeah.
Comiskey Park, or Guaranteed Rate, or whatever the hell they call it now.
Yeah. He might be close to that 600 mark. Guaranteed rate field.
Yeah, I think last year we were kind of spoiled by Pujols' swan song. That like it made us think that that's like what the norm is, right?
Yeah.
That's just how great he was last year. I was hoping for more from Miggy. Oh, last thing I got to throw on the Miggy topic. Did you see what the Oakland Athletics gave him as a parting gift?
That's been all over my social media feed, and every time it comes up, I swipe it away. It's irritating.
They got to keep the money on the field, okay? They
You want to know the best part of all
field.
this? So for those of you who don't know, they gave him a bottle of wine, which was $79.99. That's not the part. Hey, if I gave him this bottle, that would be a good gift, right?
That'd be more expensive.
It was same price, $79.99. Did they not do the research? Miguel Cabrera is a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I didn't know that. That's insane.
Oakland gonna Oakland. And this is where we say, please drink
That's
responsibly.
brutal. Why has
in the
that not
broadcast.
gotten more news? Oh my God.
Yeah. Dude's a recovering alcoholic. Here's our finest bottle of Napa wine. Oh, thank you. That's going to hopefully sit on the shelf. Yeah. So, cheers to Miggy. Man, 2 years in a row, we're losing one of the greatest, if not the greatest hitters of our generation. Whew. And probably losing one of the best managers of our generation as well.
Oh, don't remind me, man. This one hurts. This one hurts me. Old Tito is...
He's got 10 years on frickin' Tony La Russa. Let's go, baby. Keep managing.
Just the way he's talking, man. Like, if you saw the report, I think it was a few weeks ago, where he just said, it's time. Like, didn't, like, very just morbid, kind of dry. But, man, Terry Francona, if it is, in fact, his last year, baseball is going to lose, like, just one of those cornerstone managers.
Yeah, he's mostly known for the Red Sox and the Guardians, but he did coach or manage the Phillies. 2-time World Series, as you see on your screen, 3-time pennant, the AL pennant with the Guardians in 2016. Sorry. Didn't get that third one, but yeah, 3-time manager of the year. Michael, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, he's known for the 2004 Boston Red Sox team and 2007 World Series champs. You hate to see, if as our generation of coming up now, he's one of the managers that's just a classic manager. Now we got these young guys, David Ross, coming up, and it's just, you feel better with the Dusty Bakers of the league managing your team. And who's the Rangers manager right now?
Bruce
Bochy. You feel better. Like, those are your classic guys that we don't have. I mean, right now, I guess Craig Counsell's slowly developing himself into a classic guy. Joe Madden's done.
Snit.
Yes.
Oh, is you think Snit?
Snit's been in the Braves organization for 40 years, man.
That is pretty cool.
Ron Washington with the Braves too, a third base coach, right? Eric Young, who was a former Cub, Brave, Rocky player. Yeah, I know he hasn't managed, but yeah, it's gonna be weird. That's for sure. He's been with Cleveland a lot longer than I thought. It was early 2010s, because it was at the same time him and Theo left at the same time. When Theo came to the Cubs, he left the Red Sox and went on. I think he did TV for a year, and then he came back.
He did. He took like a year off from the Red Sox, right?
Yeah, and then came to Cleveland and really turned that franchise around.
If you look at his managing career, when he left Philadelphia, so his first team he managed for, He never had a losing season. Never until this year.
That's ridiculous.
That's
Just
insane.
just shows you his team's always
Impact.
played, right? Yeah. Rick and
In
A. Yeah.
2015 was 81 and 80, but that's still a winning season. I mean,
In 2021, he went 80 and 82.
oh, excuse me. Okay, I missed that one.
But yeah, just about 500. So he's like Mike Tomlin when you look at it at football, right? Like constantly has his team in contention. Won the AL pennant in 2016 with Guardians. 2011 his last year with the Red Sox. 2013 his first year with the Indians at the time.
He's
My
just
goodness.
one of those just beloved people in baseball. Like we don't really have that much anymore. I don't feel like where the fan base, the players, like everybody loves him, right? And which blows my mind as to how his scooter got stolen for a second time. I don't. Who steals Tito's scooter? Who does that?
That's hilarious.
I'm upset about that. Who would steal Tito's scooter, man?
Yeah.
By the way,
good.
in 2004, he did not win Manager of the Year.
So
Now,
that's
granted-
a regular season award, though, isn't it?
It is. Granted, that's a regular season award.
They won 90.
But the Red Sox did sneak in and did break the curse in 2004. And Buck Showalter was actually the one that won it in 2004.
What team was he coaching at that point?
The Orioles?
The Rays? No, Texas.
It was Texas. He
Yeah,
was
that's the
coaching
first year with
Texas.
A-Rod, wasn't it?
Yep,
First year with
it
A-Rod.
was. It's when
That's
Texas Texas had just signed A-Rod to that huge deal.
The Red Sox went 98 and 64 that year. Wow. His first year as a manager. Wow. Well, again, cheers to Terry Francona. We don't have to cheers the next two guys because who cares? Yeah, here you go, Tito.
I'm gonna drink a Tito's and lime for you later on.
Tito's in line for Tito. The next two on the list, Adam Wainwright. He's got 200 career wins. He's going to end his career here as we get towards this weekend. And then Joey Votto. I don't know. We talked about him last week, so we don't have to talk too much about him this week. Did you see the end of the Reds game last week on Sunday?
The last home game?
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't.
They
the standing ovation. He got a standing ovation, didn't he?
Standing ovation.
Yeah.
Multiple times. Got a base hit, and his final at bat was removed from the game for a pinch runner because they needed to. But also, it was one of those like we're perfect timing. Got a standing O, came out, did the old curtain call. Place was pumping. After the game, every player, every person in the stands stayed and watched and listened to his post-game press conference on the field because that's who they chose to talk to because they won the game and they thought it was going to be his final game. And he was basically in tears in it. Last week I said I don't think he's done, but after that it's kind of hard to like be like, oh yeah, I'm coming back. You know what I mean?
And he's a career Red. I don't know that
Yeah,
the Reds. We talked about it before that they could have he could be a great leader in the clubhouse, bench piece. But like you said, after this exit, it right off into the sunset while your head's held high. Unless he wants to try to help him win a ring, take a minimum salary just to come be a piece for him.
It would be hard for him to. That would be tough. If he goes out now, if he goes out now, he goes out on top, right? Like the Reds are having a great year. They're much better than expected. It's exciting. He's at the end of his, time with the Reds. He is a Red. He never played for another team. Like, yeah, that'd be tough to try and stick around.
Yeah, we'll see. I love how we just glossed right over Adam Wainwright. That's fine.
Yeah.
Suck it, Cardinals. No. What a career. I'm interested to see how that game goes this weekend because he's going to pitch, I believe. I have a feeling that Yachty's going to be coming out in uniform and taking him out of the game just because it's been that was his dude, right? Like I thought maybe
Yeah.
at the end of last year.
Would he
they
be
were gonna-
allowed to do that as a non?
I believe so.
As a
They've had-
non-rostered player.
Yeah,
I think didn't Andy Pettit come out and remove
Andy Pettit,
Jeter?
yeah.
So
And it
or
was
Jorge Posada, one of those.
it was
one of
Andy
those
Pettit,
games
Posada, and
Jorge
Jeter, was it not? They came
that
out and removed Mo.
Mo, yeah. So, and two of those guys was Jeter's. Yeah, Jeter had already
Look,
retired at that point.
if it's a problem, the Cardinals will sign Yachty as a bat boy for a day, okay, and let him go out there.
I wonder if they'll have him hiding in the tunnel though, right? Like Wayno has no
Dog.
idea. Yeah,
They should do something for him.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
He too had a storied career though, man. Like Wayno at his peak, him and Chris Carpenter when they were
Oh,
back to back, man. Oh,
I
sorry.
know it. I know
Well,
it.
Too
he
early?
was the closer in 06, right? That won it out of the bullpen his rookie
Yeah.
year. Wasn't he the closer?
Who drafted
yeah.
him, Wes?
The Braves.
I'm aware.
I'm aware.
Wasn't he first round pick?
He was.
Who did they trade him for?
I don't even remember. A freaking bag of peanuts.
Oh, I thought you knew. I thought you knew, Brandon.
No, I don't actually
No.
know. I don't remember. I don't think
200 and 128 in his career, and of those
who did we get
128,
for him?
of those 128, 11 of those losses have come this year. Career ERA 3.53, 2,202 strikeouts. Hall of very good is where
The
I would
trade
put
was
him.
a 5-player trade. The Cardinals
I
sent
just pulled
over
it up.
J.D. Drew and Eli Marrero, backup catcher, for young starting pitcher Jason Marquis, reliever Ray King, who was pretty good, and Double-A pitching prospect Adam Wainwright.
Ouch. Good thing the Braves haven't had good pitching prospects or anything over the last couple of years.
What year was that? That was 2003.
2003.
All right. How far away was that from the Mark Teixeira trade?
Yes, Albert Andros. What's worse?
The Mark Teixeira trade to the Braves.
Yes. Basically just fielded the whole Texas Rangers like World Series contending team.
Oof. While we're talking about that, real quick,
07 was the Teixeira trade.
Miggy, unanimous Hall of Famer or no?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Anybody that votes no for Miguel Cabrera in the Hall of Fame, I'm sorry. Like, they need to lose their vote. I already have some reserve about today's voters because I don't think that they watch baseball as much as they used to in the past. Like when it still matters. And I forget which player it was. Somebody voted, I think it was a Red Sox player, like a Red Sox writer that didn't vote for Mariano Rivera.
Mo is the only one who's ever won in unanimous.
Or maybe it's Jeter.
You're thinking Griffey.
Griffey, yeah. And somebody
It's like
didn't vote for him. And you're like,
99.7. Yeah.
oh. Anyways,
Yeah.
I digress. I'm not gonna go down that road.
99.3 for Ken Griffey Jr. So that means two people didn't vote for him, I believe. But yeah, I think Miggy should be a unanimous, but I do think that there'll probably be one or two writers who say he's going to make it anyway. I'm going to put my vote on a player who I think also deserves it. That probably isn't going to get the vote. I don't know if we'll ever see a unanimous again, just because it's only been happened once. But maybe Pujols, but who knows? We'll see. It'll be back-to-back
come
years.
Yeah.
Real quick, before we get going, the Orioles just not only clinched the AL East, they just had their 100th win for the first time
Man.
since Michael's freshman year of high school. I mean, since 1980. No, 1980.
What a season.
43 years. Yeah, what a season. Are they the team to beat, or is it the Astros?
I still think it's the Astros. I don't think
Uh,
the Orioles have the pitching, man. How they got to 100 wins with that rotation, I don't know. Oh my
I don't.
gosh.
I don't think anybody expected them to be at 100 wins, but I did
yeah.
anticipate them to be a competitor in that
Contending.
division for a wild card spot. But yeah, wow.
Well, Bradish and Grayson Rodriguez this half have been pretty good. I mean, they both have sub 280 ERAs.
And John Means is back, and Bautista. Did he finally come back, or is he still pitching bullpens?
I haven't seen that he came back. I don't think he's been
I hadn't
activated
either.
yet.
I think it's going to be one of those. He's going to be put on the roster if possible, and then he could be taken off if need be. But yeah, I mean, and the team's got a scary offense. You can't knock that. Defensively, I think they're one of the more sound teams in the league, going and getting the ball, and pitching and defense. But the pitching is the question. Their bullpen, though. I mean, if Bautista is healthy, we talked about it last week. And we'll get into predictions as we get into next week, because you can expect another episode of us a little bit sooner as we get on into next week. But yeah, Baltimore Orioles clinched the AL East. There's only one division left to be clinched. It's the AL West.
Yeah,
I'm looking
I think
forward to
it's
it.
it's the Rangers to lose right now.
Should be. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So if we were looking at it today, Brandon, here's the playoff picture as of today. Marlins up there at the 6th seed.
And just like last year, we're going to do our own bracket challenge and a giveaway for the playoffs. So tune into our next episode for more of that. But make sure you're following us on all sorts of social media, all the YouTube channels. Head on over to Barrels and Barrels Pod on YouTube and BNB Bourbon to get a chance to win something as we get towards the end of the playoffs. We'll be doing a bracket challenge, that Barrels and Barrels bracket challenge, like we did last year. Real quick, our top 10 power rankings, which are brought to you by 10th Mountain Whiskey and Spirit Company. It is our second to last power rankings of the season. This upcoming weekend, you'll find this on our YouTube page next Monday. We will have a new set of power rankings. It'll be our top 12 power rankings, because it'll be ranking the 12 teams that make it into the playoffs, and we'll be doing our breakdown of who we think the best of those are. So before we get any further, Michael, who are your top 10 this week?
I'll give you my 10 here, since we're closing out. The Minnesota Twins at number 10, moving into the top 10 for me. Seattle Mariners at 9, Philadelphia Phillies at 8, the Toronto Blue Jays falling a spot at 7, Houston falling a spot at 6, Milwaukee Brewers at 5, and the rounding out the top 4 is the Braves, Orioles, Rays, and Dodgers from 1
You
through
read
4.
last week's power rankings, buddy.
Week 25.
Week 26.
I read the wrong ones?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was 25.
Week 26.
All right, Brandon, give us your
Houston.
Week 26 power rankings.
Houston Astros, number 10. Number 9, the Minnesota Twins. Number 8, Texas. Number 7, Toronto. 6, the Milwaukee Brewers. 5, the Philadelphia Phillies. Tampa Bay. In 4, LA. 3, Baltimore. 2, and the Braves in first. And again, those are powered by 10th Mountain Whiskey and Spirit Company, which you can go to 10thwhiskey.com. Use promo code BNB for 10% off your order. It's almost spooky season. Oh, I guess we're in spooky season. It's almost Christmas shopping season, and Michael's been doing his Christmas shopping on 10th Mountain Whiskey's website. All summer. He's been shopping since our sponsorship started. So go to 10thwhiskey.com.
What you getting, Brandon?
Yep. A big fat nothing. So that is it for the final regular season episode of Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Episode 44, the Hank Aaron episode. YouTube is where you can find us, Barrels and Barrels Pod, for our baseball content. We're putting out more shorts. We've got our plays of the week out there. We call those our thieves of the week. Also, our top 10 power rankings. And as we go into the offseason, we'll have some more baseball content for you there. But if you're looking for bourbon content at BNB Bourbon, go head on over to YouTube there. As I mentioned, we'll be doing a giveaway here shortly, not only for when we get to 1,000 subscribers, but also a playoff bracket style challenge. Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Barrels and Barrels Pod. On Twitter at Barrels and Barrels. And you can email us if you so choose. If you want to buy some gear, that shirt that Wes is wearing, I've got a hat, Michael's got a hat, the Glen Cairns we've been drinking out of, the Whiskey Wisdom glasses, whatever it is, head on over there, email us, and we'll get those shipped out to you. barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. Listen to us if you haven't already. Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, and iHeartRadio podcasts. Don't forget to hit the rate and review button. Gentlemen, it has been a sad day just because it's the last regular season podcast, but we're going into the best time of the year.
The last time the Cubs will be playing any baseball.
Relevant baseball, yeah, for sure. It'll be the last time we're talking about the Cubs playing a game next. The next time we'll be talking about. Yep, until next year. So that is it for episode 44. Thanks for joining us again, Wes. Michael Burns, do you have any final post-mortem thoughts about the Cubs, about the podcast, about bourbon, or you just sending us home?
I will spare everybody my sorrows and just finish with, let's go.
That's the weakest let's go so far.